There we go. The very first thing that I want to check is that you guys can hear me. And Lindsay, maybe we can see if your mic works as well.
Yeah. Can you hear me as well? How about you, Harold?
Yeah, I can hear you. So everything
Okay,
on
great.
that should be sorted. So if you guys can just quickly just confirm that you guys can hear us, I think you guys can hear us loud and clear. So let me just take off this starting soon banner and get to it. So we have a lot of people coming in from all the way from Silicon Valley, Vienna, Berlin, Bermuda, the Bahamas, Saudi Arabia, Cairo, and good. You can also confirm that you hear us. So you need to just be aware that there is a slight lag between us actually speaking and introducing something to you guys and when we can see it in the chat. So if we go silent or if there seems like there is a lag, that is because there is. But I think with this, we've given it a couple of minutes and we're just going to jump straight into it. So both Lindsay and I, we want to welcome you guys to today's live masterclass. We were going a bit back and forth on the topic or the title of this one because the event on LinkedIn is a bit different in terms of called Outbound is Dead and here's the playbook. I just simplified it for the title on the slide, like the playbook that's replacing Outbound. And just to give you guys a heads up, we're going to give a bit more introduction to each of us in a bit. But I want to start by actually stating something that is very direct, and that is you are actually in quite big trouble. And that is only if you are growing based on either referrals, word of mouth, or outbound. Because if you're doing either of those, it's likely that you're experiencing that either new marketing attempts are failing, revenue are skipping, going sideways, or maybe even going downwards, your pipeline not converting, outbound is not working, growth is too dependent on you as maybe the founder or owner, and marketing tactics or marketing takes just too much time. If those are the cases, what we are going to cover in this live masterclass is why that often is the case, the underlying factor for and things that actually affect it, and why it's maybe something that you're not thinking of. Because the thing that we're going to cover is something that rarely anyone covers. At least me, having done this for 15 years, haven't rarely heard anyone touch upon this. And we're going to do as promised, and that is give you guys the new playbook for how to do the new way of generating leads and building something of your marketing that compounds. And one thing that I also want to go into is we are going to have a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the chat or in the comments, and we're going to take a look at them. I might take a couple of pauses here and there to actually review, go through the chats. Lindsay's also going to help me on this in terms of reviewing what questions come through so that we can actually address all of them. But the core Q&A is going to be at the end. So if you stick around, you will be able to have all your questions answered before we wrap up this session. We're also going to be trying to stay within the hour, but if we go longer, that is just to answer all the questions that you guys have. So if you have any, leave them in the chat and we're going to get to it. So one of the key things that we see time and time again when it comes to why outbound is not working, why people are not able to generate leads, not convert leads or build pipeline, it might also be that it's things outside of what you're already doing. Meaning you're not doing the wrong things, so it most likely is not your strategy, but it might be the infrastructure behind it. It's the thing that supports your strategy. Because I like to say that any strategy, any tactic can work, but if you're not building it on solid ground, that might be one of the reasons why it's not working. So I want to go through this with you first. Like, do you feel this is familiar? Like you start, you build your company, you have a good growth trajectory in the beginning, like you grow in referrals, people know that you're good at what you do and they refer people to you. Then you end up hitting a plateau and it starts stalling. It goes sideways. It goes a bit skippy. You try new things. Like you try things like LinkedIn, you try outbound, you try paid ads, you try cold email, you tried agencies, you tried appointment setters. Like you tried everything under the heavens and nothing has really worked. And you're now at this point where you're at a crossroad. Will the revenue grow and this new thing I'm going to test be the thing that makes me, let's say, break out of that plateau? Or is it going to be a nosedive in terms of revenue? And if that uncertainty is what you're experiencing on a daily basis, maybe weekly basis, or been thinking about the last month, then what we're going to go through in this session is going to help you. Because what I've seen is that it's not the tactic, because the tactics can work. Like paid ads work, outbound does work, cold email work, but it's a question of how you do it, but also what infrastructure and support you have for it. Because the tactic wasn't the thing that failed. You're able to generate leads, which ultimately is you generating attention, and you have your process to convert them. So any tactic can work. Any channel can work. You can do LinkedIn, you can do Facebook, you can do Meta, you can do email, YouTube, Google, whatever channel you want. It's going to work. And any strategy can work. The thing that is missing is the infrastructure you need to handle the leads that you actually get. I'm going to say that another time. The thing that is often missing is, what do you do with the leads that you actually get? What process do you take them through? What do you send them? How do you segment them? How do you process them? Do you have a solid process for that? Because there are two key variables that has an impact whether your strategy and tactic are going to work or not when you're generating leads and sales. The first one is trust and the decay of trust, because trust increases and it decreases. And then you have timing and let's say the thing of trying to force it. Because most people and most strategies, really, if you're thinking about outbound, they're trying to force the conversion. Like, oh, if we want more pipeline, we just send more cold emails. So if we want to send more emails, we need to buy more domains, and we just need to add more to it. If we're running outbound on LinkedIn, okay, we just need to scale the profiles. So the entire industry of renting profiles has become a thing because people just want to scale. But it's, if you force timing and you're not reaching out to people at the appropriate time, your effort is likely in vain. Because if you don't then have a system that follows up, and I'm talking 18 months follow-up, then you're really going to make sure that, okay, a lot of the things that you do will not have any impact because you're trying to force timing. So these are the two variables. So to go more into them, trust, as mentioned, can go up and it can go down. And the question that is essential to ask oneself is, when you review or take a look at what you're doing on marketing today, to find people, to generate leads, to build pipeline, to book meetings, to do sales, are the way you're doing it now something that builds trust and increases it, or something that deteriorates and breaks it down? If you are pitching unsolicited cold emails to people that you have no prior touch point with, do you believe that is increasing trust or decreasing trust in your brand and company? That's a one thing that you need to have and do right. The second thing is timing, because timing defines the market size that you have. If you are trying to reach people now without any sort of indication that they are in a buying window, you're shooting with a shotgun, because you have your entire market and it's only a small subsegment of that market that is ready to buy now. And most try to force timing by selling to the market that is not ready now. Because if you do outbound specifically, you can't really identify whether people are ready now or not. You have signals like, okay, people are hiring, they're raising money, but those are lagging indicators. You don't know if it's still the appropriate timing. And the reason for that is because if someone is hiring now, they might already have things in place and they need to fill in the capacity. They might also hire preemptively, and okay, they are planning to do something of a push later on, but they do not have the need for your services right now. So the thing that you need to do is that you need to have a method of being visible over time, so that when someone enters a buying window, you're there and they know you, they trust you, they believe in you, and they know what you actually do and think, okay, this is something that is going to help me. Because you can think of this as a timeline. You have the current now, and then you have the buying decision of a company. The majority of that time, 95% plus, are not ready yet. And it's less than 5% that are ready right now. So if you are pitching, sending cold emails, and just blasting out 95% of those that you reach with a sales message are not in any point or situation where they're going to entertain it even. Hence why you're seeing low engagement, low conversion, low results on the outbound that you have. So you want to do something a bit different. You want to keep showing up and being visible until someone gets inside of their buying window, meaning you communicate to them, you market to them when they're outside, but in a different way. And we're going to get to that. So that when they enter the buying window, they know about you, they trust you, and you basically play to your strengths of increasing your chances of people even considering you when they get into that buying window. So one thing that I want to ask before going forward is comment 1 in the chat if you are running any sort of outbound motion, if it be cold email, LinkedIn outreach, cold calling, or a combination of the different ones. Because I just want to see, okay, how many of you guys actually are running some sort of outbound motion to have a gauge of maybe where I want to go a bit more specific into in my elaboration and description of the things that we're going to go into next. So again, this is where we're going to see a bit of the delay and the lag to this, but let's simply go through that quickly. So okay, some areas doing any or some sort of outbound motion. Let's see. I'm also going to see a bit in the chat in terms of if there's any other things that have been asked. Jana is asking, saying yes or 1. Mark, Nicoletta, Kevin, Michael, Tim. There's a lot of you guys that are running outbound motions. Gustav, hopefully I'm not, let's say, slaughtering any of your names, so and I'm calling it correctly. So there are a couple of you guys that are actually running outbound motions at the moment, and I assume there are more than you guys that are just commenting. So yeah, Kai is typing 1, so there are more of you guys actually doing this. So the one thing here is that nobody talks about this. Nobody talks about, okay, you need to have the timing, you need to have the trust, but how do you even do this? And that is what we're going to go more into now. But before that, we said that we're going to give a short introduction. Hopefully, since you're here, you know a bit about me. But my name is Harald. I'm the CEO and founder of Your Ventures. And I've really been a founder since the age of 16. I started 5 years prior, but that I wouldn't call those businesses, more hobby and learning how to code and do the websites. And I've done digital growth for 15 years. Everything in terms of outbound, inbound, paid ads, how to build funnels, messaging, everything you can really touch upon under the topic of digital growth. And I've helped several hundred companies at this point. And I actually believe that looking back, that me and Bureau were one of the first companies and people starting doing outbound motions on LinkedIn in an automated fashion, even before you had the softwares that allow you to run automations right now. So been doing that for more than 8 years. It has changed dramatically. And that is one of the reasons why I'm also calling this entire session Cold Outbound is Dead, because there are different ways of doing it, which we're going to get to. And in terms of internally, I like to call myself a bit of the mad scientist type of persona, because I really love tinkering with things. Like, okay, how can we use the strategy? And for the past 4.5 years, we really looked hard at how to use AI to augment marketing, which we're going to get to as well in this session. But I'm going to leave Lindsay to give her own introduction. So, Lindsay, the mic is yours.
Thanks, Harald. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Lindsay Jew, and I have been in sales and marketing for 20 years, which means that I've seen many life cycles of best practices, but the wisdom in today's presentation really stands the test of time. I also love working with companies undergoing rapid growth, and that's why I joined Burrow Ventures in the first place. And my background is in psychology and also have a background in the martial arts. So I thoroughly enjoy listening to the human experience and reacting accordingly, whether that's aligning client strategies or other ways that I can just help support growth.
So now you know a bit more about us in terms of why we actually are even addressing this topic overall. But to continue, there is one thing I want to highlight, and that's an equation. And this is actually an equation that McKinsey and large enterprises like Deloitte, Bain, BCG, a lot of the large enterprises that are really household names have understood decades ago or years ago. And that is, if you have exposure with something that is valuable in a repeated fashion, that over time equals and compounds into trust. The thing that makes it possible for them to do this is that they have the huge ecosystem and infrastructure that they have. Everything from content distribution machines to alumni networks to thought leadership engines to event ecosystems. They have a whole suite of supporting structures that allow them to actually do this at scale. However, that has previously not been really that feasible for smaller firms like companies less than 10 employees. Even I would even say that companies less than 20 employees, it would rarely be possible for them to do this. Some companies did it after having built things for more than a year, but now things have changed. Because now you can build a similar type of structure as those large enterprises had in a 90-day sprint. And the key to this is how AI can augment how we do the marketing. Because one aspect was that were things that cost us millions of dollars to build previously that now you can do really, really efficiently and with a one-man marketing team or a one-person marketing team. So you can really achieve the same thing. But how companies did this in the past is that they had exposure mechanisms with paid ads, with email, with social media, with LinkedIn, delivering things that were of value, like emails, like videos, tools, and things that really helped the audience with doing something that they had as a problem. And you've probably seen this in some shape and form in the past, where you have a need to expose the thing that you have to your audience. That it can be done through organic posting. It can be done through outbound, either email or LinkedIn or any other social media channel, or you can do paid ads or SEO, as long as you get the exposure and eyeballs. Then the question is, what do you get those eyeballs for? And it needs to be content. Content is the new thing, but you need to do content differently today than what you did in the past because AI is making it super easy to produce something. So you need to produce the right things. And then you need a way to repeat that, not in a way where you are on the hamster wheel creating new things all the time. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a mechanism to repeat communication with your audience and exposure to your audience in a way that is personalized, that extracts you as a founder or reduces the time that you guys spend on marketing. So we're going to go a bit more into this. And this is the thing that has changed. The access to the same systems have changed. And that is what we're going to go through next. So there are 3 layers to this. First layer is you need the lead gen. Like everyone talks about lead generation, how to do it, how to do prospecting, how to generate the leads, how to get them in, how to really build your pipeline. But a lot of people miss the next step, and that is the trust layer. You need a mechanism, you need a way of systematically building trust. Because if you are, let's say, a boutique consultancy, or you're a smaller firm that has grown on referrals, or you're a company that are founder-led in your sales, so everything relies on you, it's the trust to you as a person, as a company, with existing clientele that is driving the biggest, let's say, pipeline. However, you need to really engineer the same sort of trust to scale further, especially if you're stepping down as the founder for marketing, for a sales-led approach or a marketing-led approach, where really your marketing or a sales team drives it, not you as the founder. You need something to engineer that trust. And it's a flywheel for this. You need to have content that people can engage with, which allows you to build your internal signal system to track whether people are engaged or not, which then caters how much people get, when they get it, where they get it, so that they get more. And what this ends up doing is that it builds more trust, it scores your leads. We're gonna get more into it. And the third layer is audience. Because if you have a way to generate the leads and you have a system that can handle those leads for the next 3, 6, 9, 12, even 18 to 24 months, you have something that can systematically expand the audience and the market that you have. Because as mentioned previously, 95% are not ready now, but a large chunk of those are going to be ready in the next 24 months, 18 months, 12 months. You need a system to handle the leads that you generate. Otherwise, you currently have a leaky bucket. And with a leaky bucket, what most people do is that they just pour more water into it, but then the more water is going to go out through the holes. By having the layer 2, what you end up doing is that you're plugging all the holes, making sure that the bucket actually fills and starts overflowing over time. And then you just need a bigger bucket. So we did this in 2025, and we posted more than 1,200 times on LinkedIn because we used LinkedIn as the core platform and channel. And that generated 184,000 comments. And just on my personal one, since February last year, so basically just over 1 year, I got close to 4 million impressions on LinkedIn. I had a couple of more millions the 2 months prior to that. So that would be December 2024 to then February 2025. But the key here is that we have 20 of those profiles and more than that. And that is where, okay, my personal profile and impressions are not necessarily the biggest, because there are huge influencers on LinkedIn. But when we stack that across 20 profiles, that was the way that we were able to generate this. And it was 65,000 leads. But you don't need 65,000 leads to have a marketing engine, a marketing strategy and system that can sustainably and predictably help you go through that plateau that you're facing right now. Maybe even just 100 leads a month is going to be enough. 100 leads a week might be enough. But you need that system to handle the leads that come in so that you have a bucket that just keeps on filling instead of having holes where everything leaks out of. How this actually works is in a couple of steps. So the first thing you need is you need a system to start posting on LinkedIn. That is where everything really starts. And what you post about on LinkedIn is going back to having some sort of educational piece of asset or resource. A lot of people call them lead magnets because they're used to gather leads. And you could say that's true in this case. But the essence is you want to have something, an educational piece of value or content that addresses a certain problem that your target audience has. It gives them a solution that they can actually implement, and that proves your credibility, that you're trustworthy and you're an authority and you know what you're talking about. You need to have that. Like, we built plenty of systems and we publish plenty of things on LinkedIn that helps you actually create those things, but that's the first thing. So you post on LinkedIn and then you get people to comment. You've probably seen them like, hey, we've created this asset, comment book or comment B2B or start, and we're going to send it to you on DM. That is an amazing strategy to start generating inbound leads. However, you need to do it in the proper way. Most companies do it in the not proper way because they either, one, they don't send the resource over, or two, they make something that is so crappy and sloppy that you can create it in one prompt in ChatGPT. They haven't really proofread it. You have a lot of M dashes, indents, and plenty of tells that is just AI. Don't do that. Make something that is based on your expertise, the proprietary knowledge, understanding, and expertise that you have. That is what you need. Once you have those 47, what ends up happening is that you have that trust nurturing element of handling those leads over time so that they can get more content. They can engage with it. You can then gauge whether they're interested and engaging or not, segment them based on that, and then able to cater so that they have more and more value to consume. What that does is that allows us to categorize all the leads that you have into a cold, warm, and hot segment. Once someone gets into the hot segment, we extract those into the sales process, either by inviting them to a call, having the sales team follow up, maybe even pick up the phone, and then book meetings with them, which then turns into clients. And by having this, you reach out at the time when someone is showing so much interest that it's unavoidable that you can, with a really high confidence, say this person is actively looking for what we are selling because of how that system and categorization is set up. So the system flags the leads that are turning hot and that are ready. And the way that that is fed and looped is that those leads that are not ready now, they stay within the system, goes through this loop again, where we handle the leads up to 24 months and beyond. And then once they're ready, that might be in 3 and 6 months, they go into the hot, and then your sales takes over. This does a couple of things. One, once you have this set up, you just follow up leads that enter that ready category. Secondly, you just feed more leads into it. So the bucket that you have just keeps filling and filling and filling and filling, and you save the time and effort of your sales team. Because having a sales team specifically, you need to have the structure for them. Having a structure of prioritizing the leads that you have is hygiene standard. You need that. And this does that. Also, it makes the conversations with the leads that you end up having in a pipeline and meeting with completely different from a cold lead, because they know you, they trust you, they believe in what you do. I've even had a client that was a lead that ended in the client say that they've created a folder in their email inbox, saving absolutely everything that we've sent them. That completely changes the dynamic in calls like that. So you need this. And to do this, you need 3 things. Or actually, before we go there, does this make sense? Go in the comments and say, and type in 2. And of you guys, that I want to challenge you a bit now. If you have something like this, or if you have this, comment 3. Because I want to see, okay, how many in here are actually doing something or having a system of handling the leads that you've generated. So if you have something on this, comment 3. If it makes sense, comment 2. And I'm just curious to see in the chat how many of you guys have something. And if there's something that doesn't make sense, I would love you guys to leave the questions in the comments here.
It looks like you're getting some questions around it. And one of the earlier questions, one person had asked, how do you create a trust engine quickly and get it up and running within 90 days? So they like the segmentation, and they just, they're wondering, what are the components that need to be part of it?
Yeah, so really you could say that you have, I believe it's 4 key components. So the first thing you need is the educational piece of resource. Like, you could say that this live stream and live masterclass is one of those resources, because it addresses the topic, it teaches something, it shows that we are real human beings, and giving away something that hopefully people find value in. So this is one. Another one could be a written guide, it could be a white paper, it could be a report, but you need that. That's the first one. The second thing you need is the post on LinkedIn. And that obviously needs to be structured in a certain way. The third thing you need is the email, because when we're addressing what is done to the leads when you generate them, you have emails. So you need to send someone emails. The thing here is that those emails are not promotional emails, they're not pitching a meeting, they're not pitching a sale. What they're doing is that they're providing resources to everyone. So if someone was generated as a lead for a specific guide, they come in and they get all of the other things that you've had and that you've created and are creating in the future. So you're basically delivering more value to them. So the third is email. The fourth one is what makes this truly different and makes it truly impactful, and that is ads. So what you can do is that you can set up a retargeting campaign on Meta or LinkedIn. We prefer Meta, where you have a ad that links directly to the resource or the educational piece of value. And the ad is a $5 a day campaign that caters to whether someone is in the cold, hot, and warm. So there's a lot of elements in here that make sense to set up, but you need 4: resource, LinkedIn post, email, and ad. Once you have those, of course, you have the technical aspect of this, but that might be a bit lengthy to cover now before we continue. Was there any other questions aside from that, Lindsay?
Uh, yeah, some I think maybe we want to table to the last, let me see. There's one about the buckets. Um,
Mm-hmm.
let me just simplify the question here from Mark, and it's how do you decide whether it's going into the hot bucket, the warm bucket, or the cold?
Okay, so there's a couple of ways you can do that, Mark. The simplest way of describing it is when people engage with something, like open an email, click an email, visit a page, consume a guide, anything like that, they get points. Once they do not do those things, or on a regular cadence, they lose points. So that way you have a scaling up and down gouge or of whether someone is engaging now or not. So you have kind of like a scale that goes up and down. And the cold, warm, and hot is have score thresholds. So if they're below, let's say 10 points or 8 points, they are in the cold. If they are between 8 and 20, they are in the warm. And if they're above 20, they are in the hot. And based on backtesting and running this for years now, what we've seen is that it takes a bit of effort for someone to get into that hot, because they lose points by not doing things, and they lose points by just on a weekly basis. So that is the one thing that gives you a layer of segmentation. You can add other things in terms of how much they've consumed on top of it, but that just makes the entire explanation now more complicated. So that's the essence. So I'm actually going to then continue. And if you have other questions, leave them in the chat. We're going to come back to them in the Q&A a bit later. So to do all of this, there are 3 core things you can need as your quote-unquote homework or starter pack to be able to do the rest. The first of that is the ICP defined. So having your ICP, your ideal customer profile or target audience, your dream client defined, and having that broken down into segments, because you have more qualified and more attractive and better segments in your ICP, and then you have ones that are less ideal. And the way that we do this is that we reverse engineer these based on your offer. There are different ways of doing this, but we're going to get into how to do this a bit later. The second thing you need is your audience research, the ICP research. And that is learning more about and knowing more about what does the ICP actually talk about? What is their key problems? What are keeping them up at night? Who are they really? All of these things that gets you to know them better than they might even know themselves. And you need to do this on every segment you have. So if you have 3 ICP segments, you need to have 3 of those deep dives. And the third thing you need as a starter pack for this is your offer memo. This is really just a memo of your offer, your USP, your value prop. And the reason why we need all of these is that if you want to have AI augment or power your marketing, it needs context. Because the issue and the problem with AI, especially now, is if you just ask it to do something, you're going to get mediocre results. If you give it the context that is unique to you, to your company, to your expertise, to your knowledge, to your experience, to how you guys do things, you get something that is completely different. Because when everyone has access to a tool, what ends up happening is that everything digresses to the mean. Everything becomes average. And then the question is, how do you stand out? You stand out by feeding AI the appropriate and the good context it needs to have the understanding that you have. Because you can think of it as every time you ask ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or whatever large language model you use, a question, it is a completely blank slate. It doesn't have your expertise. It doesn't have your preconceptions. It doesn't have your understanding of things. You need to feed it those things so that you align it and you point it to the true north. So those are the 3 things. Now, these 3 things are what feeds the rest of this. It's the things that help you create the post, creates the resources, and do the comments, do the emails and the other content that you need, and then also how you follow up and segment the rest. So this is the fundamental building block and context you need to get things moving. Now, the thing that is different here is that this is not structured as a campaign, because a campaign stops. Like you have start date and you have end date. The difference here is that this loops, because when someone are not ready now, they are eventually going to get ready, and we want to loop that. So you basically build up a whole list of things. So just to give an arbitrary example of this is that if you in month 1 have 50 leads, month 3 you have 150, month 6 you have 300, and so on up until month 12 and onwards. If you're just doing outbound today, you're starting a bit from scratch every single month. Yes, you might loop back to a lead, but you don't really have a proper nurturing. But what ends up happening is that over time, a larger percentage of your total are going to enter a buying window. And then you want to have something that makes you show up time and time again, so that when they enter that buying window, they know about you, they know about what you do, they trust you, and they like you, because you've given them so much value that they feel a bit of reciprocity bias that they need to return the favor. And this is the core things. So the leads you generate today are still going to be in the system 18 months from now, warming up, engaging with what you have, going into the cold, warm, and hot segments, and entering buying windows. And that is what the system allows you to do, and not just toss a bunch of leads into a leaky bucket and fall out the other end without converting. So what I actually want to do now is we've gone through a bunch of things, and I want to go through the exercise of mapping your ICP. We're going to see how long this actually needs to take. I see that we're a bit above in terms of the timeline when we ran the test earlier today, but I have 3 questions for you, and I'm going to put a bit of a timer on my end to ensure that we progress, and then you will get access to this so that you can actually go through it. So the first question, I want you to write down on your phone, on your computer, in your notes, not physically, because you want to copy paste this later. First question, what is it that you sell? So write that down. I'm going to give you some time. That could be a one-liner, that could be just 2 lines, it could be a paragraph, depending on how quickly you're able to write, but I'm going to give you some time now to actually do that. To give you an example, Bureau, what we do is that we help companies with really 3 things: lead gen, lead nurture, and lead conversion. But what we do that with is that we build lead generation strategies that have a nurturing component at the back of it, so that no matter how you generate the leads, we generate the leads, and then we have a way to retarget and segment and internal sales signal on the leads that are ready. That is what we do. Now, the second question that I want you to write down on is, what's your USP? What makes you different? That is, how do you differ from existing alternatives or your competitors? How do you do something, or what is it that you do that no one else does? Or how do you do it better? How do you do it faster? How do you do it cheaper or more reliably? That's the second question. And what I want you to do for this is I want you to think about, okay, what is it that is unique with what I do? And it is fine that you don't necessarily do something completely different. And that's fine, because a lot of it is just doing things faster, doing it cheaper. An example for us is that a lot of quote-unquote lead generation services, which we are not just offering that, we're building way more than that, but that type of service, everyone stops with, okay, the meeting was booked. And we converted of the 1,000 leads that we reached out to, we booked 15 meetings. What do we do with the 985 leads that are left? We have something to follow up those, which you've seen now so far in this session. So hopefully you've written down something for that now. The third question is, what is the outcome that what you offer delivers? That is the specific, measurable, or felt transformation that the buyer experienced. That could be that is the results. What changes in your work, revenue, time, stress, status, something else when using it. For us, just to give you guys a couple more examples again, while you then write, is more consistent lead flow. You have less time spent on marketing, interestingly, because you build a system that runs. You have higher performance in sales because you follow up at that proper timing. And you have higher conversions because the leads that you follow up that are ready trust you more because they know about you, they know what you do, instead of being completely a random person reaching out to them on email or on LinkedIn. So you have that trust and familiarity built up before the actual sales conversation. So less founder dependency, less time on marketing, higher performance on sales. That's the key outcomes. Now, I want you to write 4 in the chat once you have these 3 questions written down. Because once I see the first couple of 4s in the chat, we're going to move on to the next one, which is where I'm going to give you the tool or custom GPT that we built for this session, so that you can actually just paste it out and get your ICP report. So in the chat, go ahead and type 4 if you've been able to write down the answer to the 3 questions. So let's see. I do see another question here from that was, does it work in healthcare and hospitals for lead generation also? Yes. So the key thing here is that this entire engine works if you have a key, let's say key decision maker that in a company that you want to reach. So if you sell to consumers and you sell something that is, let's say, really low priced, this is not the right setup. But if you're selling to other businesses and you have a key decision maker that you need to book a meeting with to get a sale, this can work. I see a lot of 4s already. So what we're going to do is that we're going to go on to the next one. And that is that we've created the custom GPT for this. So now we're just going to make sure that in the chat, you guys can find this. Otherwise, you can, in the browser, open a new tab, go to icp-mapper.bureauventures.com. It will redirect you to the custom GPT. But we are going to ensure that you guys get the link now in the chat. So let's see. Are we able to get that to them in the chat on LinkedIn, Lindsay?
Let me double check that.
Let's see. I see a lot of people typing 4, so that's good. So it seems like you guys are getting into it. So here we go. I think I was able to send the link now. So it seems like the link didn't get linked. So can you guys, if you are able to access it, type 5 in the chat, because you might need to copy paste it from the chat. It seems like my message didn't end up being a link.
Yeah, I was also having issues adding it to the LinkedIn comment.
So yes, Nita says yes. Okay, so good. So people get it. So what I want to do now, guys, is I actually want to bring you guys through an example that I sent. This is an example where I took the answer to those 3 questions, and I was able to, or I'm going to show you guys the output for that. So I'm going to share my screen and go through the example with you so that you guys can see what this actually outputs. So I'm going to remove the slides. I'm going to add my screen. So what you guys will see is that once you take the 3 questions and your answers to it, and you paste that in, you're going to get a ICP mapping report. Within that report, I'm going to zoom in a bit so it's easier for you guys to read. You're going to get a breakdown of your offer, the USP, and the outcome that you guys deliver from what you're offering. That could be a service, that could be a product, it could be something in between. And it's going to give you in the number of segments it identified. What it's then going to do is it's going to break down its understanding and reverse engineering of your product in terms of what is it that the offer actually does. It addresses a certain pain. It has an urgency trigger to it. It goes through who has the authority in your ICP to make the decision. It gives you the pain owner, so who has the pain and who has the budget. It gives you the threat of being replaced, and also what you do replace. It gives you a couple of timelines, and then it goes into your ICPs. So Radu, I think you should be able to see the link in the chat, but I'm going to just make sure quickly again that the link is sent another time. So you should see the link to the ICP-mapper harald.bureauventures.com in the chat now, Radu. And I see a couple of others confirm that they get access to it. So then to continue, in the report, you will then get your ICPs. So here's the ICP number 1. And for us, based on what we do, it's founder-led B2B service firms hitting a referral ceiling. That's one. And it gives the hypothesis for it. It gives you the company profile. It gives you a bit further down the decision maker profile. You will get a lot of those things. You will get the pain and the urgency. It will also go through the segment score. So it goes through the different elements and dimensions, and it scores this segment based on a total. And this one segment got 29 out of 35. And it gives you kind of like a final verdict at the end. Now, then you have ICP 2. And let me see. Can you put the 3 questions in the chat as well? Yeah, let's just do that before we continue to the final 2. Let us see. So there you guys have. Then now you have the questions in the chat as well. So to continue, then you will have a full list of all the ICPs that it was reverse engineering based on your offer and what you do, which then will give you the context that you can use for everything else. At the very end of this, I'm just going to scroll through 3 and 4 and 5. You are going to get a matrix for all of them. So this is where you're going to get an analysis of how does each of the ICPs that were matched score in terms of what's the best channel, what's the things that you should put emphasis on, and then you get the recommendation on what segment to actually focus on. And by having that, you will be able to have a priority list of where should you put your focus first, in what order should you do it, and that will help you do the planning on, okay, should we just stick to one? Should we stick to one and test against the second one to see, okay, which one of these are able to convert the fastest, generate the most leads, and those aspects? But this is really giving you a lot of pointers and directions to actually how should you do this. If you already think that you know your audience, I highly recommend still going through this because it gives you additional context that you might not have in your context, let's say, kit that you feed AI when you're working with AI. And especially if you're, let's say, using Claude Code, you're using OpenClaw, or all other custom GPTs in the way that you do your marketing today and creating stuff, this is definitely going to help you. So this is going to give you a full-on recommendation to, okay, this is how we understand your audience and segments based on what you offer. Because everything is about what problems do you solve, ultimately, at the end of the day. So I think that is now going back. I see Jens, I can't copy the link on phone. So what's going to happen, Jens, is that we're going to send out the recording. We're going to send out the slide deck and the links to this particular chat custom GPT as well after the event. So you're going to get that in the next 24 hours so that you then can come back and actually go through this. You can, let me see, you should be able to access it by any of them. Yes, Mark, you can paste all responses in one go. You don't want to do them one by one because then you basically have the GPT ask you for questions. So if you do all 3 in one, that's the best way of doing it. Now, to this as well, in terms of getting access to the sample I just walked through, in terms of the answers that I wrote in my message, tomorrow you're going to get the presentation, and then in here you will have the link as well to just access that as a sample and for inspiration for yourself as well. Now, since we're a bit limited on time, and I said that I wanted to try to get this within the hour, but that's a bit of a stretch. We can't really go through the 2 other topics, which is then the audience research and the offer memo. So one of the things that we're going to do is that we're going to follow up everyone. Your guys are going to get the links to those 2 as well, so that you can actually go through and do the whole 3-pack on your own time. But to that, I just want to check how many actually wants that full thing, because if you comment, we're going to be able to send over those things to you faster than what we're able to do in terms of prepping and sending it over to everyone. in one go tomorrow. So if you want those two, just comment pack, and we're going to be able to send those over so that we have those in the list. Okay, you explicitly ask for this, and then we're going to be able to send that over. Having said that, due to the lag, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to continue in the essence of your time. So the thing that you now see on the screen is the system that we've built over time, or really over the past decade. It's been components built year after year, been added to it. And the three key things, the ICP, the research, and the offer memo, is where AI does the research. Because what we've done is that we've augmented this entire process using AI. So AI does the research about your product and your audience. AI can draft the posts and the resources that you post about. The AI can handle the comments and collect the leads that you get through commenting on LinkedIn. AI is the one that can create all of the content that people consume. So given the question that was asked a bit earlier in this masterclass, which was what are the core resources and things that we need to set up this, it's a resource, it's the posts, it's the emails, it's the ads. All of that is set up and drafted using AI by having that content pack. And AI is able to check the engagement and score the leads based on what they actually do. And then AI is also able to highlight when leads are ready. So pinging your sales team, automatically following up the leads. And all of this is done by looking at what are the core things you need in your marketing strategy, and how can we augment all of this using AI. And this AI layer on top of it, and the augmentation of your marketing strategy, is what we really spent more than, or really the 4.5 last years on, really before ChatGPT was launched. But you need that foundation. And that is why in the beginning said, it might not be the tactic that you're running on outbound or paid ads or posting that is making your marketing tactic and strategy not work. It's the infrastructure, it's the setup behind it that is not supporting that compounding growth and breaking through the stalling or the ceiling or the plateau that you might be experiencing now, or maybe even the skipping up and down and unpredictability. So this is the system you need. I see a lot of people commenting pack, which I really love to see. So we're going to do our best to be able to send the links over to you guys as quickly as possible. But it's quite a lot of you guys that asked it. So be a bit patient with us, but we're going to do our best to get it over to you as soon as we can. So then to continue, the reason why you want this is so that you can generate leads and compound the results, so that you no longer have any one-off campaigns that have a start date and have an end date, and then, okay, we need to plan the next one. You want something that runs and it loops. The second reason is so that you can spend less time on marketing, because what we typically need to do as founders, as owners, as CEOs, and even CMOs, if some of you guys are here, and marketing managers and directors, is we need to spend more time building the business, building the support structures, helping our team, helping the employees that we have, having the SOPs, building new automations, not just spending the days churning out and doing things that are repetitive. You want something that can take your time away from it, save time, and then put that in where you can make more from it. So that's one other reason. The third is to really remove the founder bottleneck, because if your company is growing currently by you as a founder, or relying on the founder's position and brand, this is really one thing that just removes that. Because to really scale a company, you can't really have the founder be the limiting factor. That's not going to help support the sales team. That's not going to really help support your marketing team. You need to detach that. A strong founder brand is also a really good breeding ground to get out of it, because you then have the attention that you then can convert into something long-term. You also want to ensure that all marketing efforts can yield results. Because if you run cold email, if you run paid ads, if you run outbound on LinkedIn, if you have SEO and inbound, you need to have a way to handle those leads. I had a client call earlier today, and he was addressing the fact that they were generating too many leads, which is a really good problem to have, but they were not able to actually have a way to ensure that those were converted over time. So they didn't have any nurture. I said, you guys need this. So what I talked with a client on intimately about their business today, you guys got it now in terms of the full overview that you guys should implement. So I typically end up recommending the same thing to almost everyone I talk to, with variance. So certain things are more relevant for some and other aspects for others, but you should have something like this in place. And the end of it, this as well, is by having this, you build the trust and you ensure that timing is right. Because as we mentioned previously in the session as well, by having the trust and the timing right, it just makes everything easier. It's not, you don't need to force. You don't need to go the more equals more. You can do less equals more, because you don't need to put 50 more domains on your cold email, sending 50,000 more emails a month to get a small uptick. You don't need to spend thousands upon thousands of more dollars a week, a day, or a month on paid ads to grow your results. You already have the leads and attention. What do you do with them? You need that system. So for us, we typically do this in three different ways. We either help companies build the entire thing in 90 days, where we go in, we build it, set up the accounts, we integrate everything, we do everything on the technical aspects, and we share the internal proprietary tech that we built to support and augment all of this with AI. The second way we do this is we do a partial build. So maybe you just want the posting, maybe you just want the emails, maybe you just want the retargeting. We do those. Or the third way that we've recently introduced is that we can teach you how to do this from A to Z through a sort of, we teach you, we show you, you learn it, your employees learn it, and then you go on and do this. But if what I've described now in this session feels like the missing piece that you might think, okay, this is going to have an impact on my company, because yes, I don't have this, which I also saw that there aren't a lot of you guys that have this in place, and you see it makes sense, then I'm going to actually extend an invitation to you all, because I hope that you find value in this so far. We're getting close to the hour now, almost on the minute, and we would like to extend an invite to have a 30-minute audit session with us. And that audit session is built to do one thing. One, it's not for us to force you to become a client. It is meant for us to give you the context and understanding of how should you do the lead generation, how should you build the trust and the engine for that, and how should you do that over time so that you cater for a larger market share and market audience that are ready and interested in what you have and not your competitor. Because at the end of the day, your market are looking for information. They're looking to learn more. Are they finding that information with your competitor, or are they finding that with you? And by having this system in place, they will find it from you. And then they will build a trust with you and not your competitor. And how you should do that is what that session would be revolving around. And this is why Lindsay has been on the call as well, because Lindsay is the one that you're going to speak to in that session. And you're going to be able to book a call. Lindsay's calendar is limited. So it is going to be kind of like a first come, first serve. But I'm going to leave the link now in the chat. Or let's see if we can send that over, so that if you guys want to book one of those sessions, you should be able to do that. So I'm sending it 2 times so that you guys can copy it over as well. If you click that link, you're going to get to the page that you can see on the screen now on the left side, where you can schedule the 30 minutes. It's going to add a buffer so it can extend to 45 if needed. And just to make sure that that is crystal clear as well, the call is free. There's no commitment required. There's no payment required for that call. It's meant for us to give you advice on how should this entire thing be implemented in your company. What's the strategy that we would advise? Where should you start? So that you can actually go from that call with a clear path on, okay, this is how we should get started. If you decide to go with us and want our help to do it, you have the different options. We can build the entire thing. We can build the core components of it, or we can teach you how to do it. But that is something that I'm going to leave you and Lindsay to discuss more specifically. But you will have the link in the chat now. But as mentioned, Lindsay has limited time, and we also have limited bandwidth in terms of doing this for companies. I just want to leave that there. Now, we have the Q&A. So I'm going to leave the link on the screen so you can just type that in and go and book a call while we go through the questions. So there have probably been a couple of questions through the session, so we're going to get to those. But we also had a couple of questions before the session sent in by a couple of people that wanted to join. So I think we can start with those, Lindsay.
Okay.
Mm.
You want to start with the ones that were sent in, Harold?
Yeah, I
I
think
did
we can
have
start with
a
those.
quick. Okay, there was just one quick tactical question that came in from Gustav before you dive in, which was, how do you make sure that the LinkedIn posts actually reach the right people at scale? I think what he's referring to is, the common problem when people will post and they'll get like 1, 2 likes, but not really the outreach that they're looking for.
Yeah, so there's really a couple of elements to that. And I'm just going to go back so that people don't get distracted by what's on the screen. So how to reach the right people when you post. Or really, you could say there are 3 things you can do. The first one is the more of your ICP that's in your personal network on LinkedIn, that is going to help. The second thing you can do is what do you even post about? Because if I talk about, for what we do, if I talk about how to go viral on LinkedIn, I'm attracting a certain audience. If I talk about how you need to have a back-end nurturing structure for your leads, I'm talking to the more strategic, more senior managerial type of person in the company. So based on the content you have, you attract different personalities and people. The third thing you can do is what a lot of people talk about on LinkedIn. That is, let's say, some say it's unethical, some say it's just fair game, some say that, okay, it's just the same thing. And that is having engagement pods. I wouldn't recommend going with engagement pods, but what I would recommend is how can you have a certain list and segment of your ideal market, or those that can reach your ideal market, engage with your post in the very, very beginning. Post that has initial traction and engagement often performs way better than those that doesn't. So, and I've seen that myself. The fourth thing really, which is a bit of a bonus, is there are certain things that goes more viral than others. You have the 80-20 rule. You have your 80-20 of your 80-20. And of the hundreds of posts that I posted in the past 1.5 years, I've only had really 20, 30 of them really go viral. But it's the staying consistent that ends up generating the volume that you want over time. But you can also add in filtering mechanisms at the back of it in terms of the leads that you actually do get to ensure that you only are left with the highest quality. So those are the things that impact this at some level. So then I think we can go to the ones that were sent in before the session, Lindsay.
Right. Okay. How long before we see results?
So I did drop up a bit of a reply or a message to that, which you guys can see on the screen. The core essence here is, if you set up starting the posting, we've seen clients and people that we've worked with go viral the same week. That is, if they go viral. In terms of setting this up, there's really 2 ways you can do it. You can do the posting on LinkedIn, which we've talked about, but you can also do the resource on a DM on your outreach on LinkedIn. Those have completely different trajectories in terms of volume. If you do posting, you can go viral in the first week. You can also go viral in the first month. You can go viral in the first 2 months. The question is, how many posts do you need to hit before getting there? That's the lead gen aspect. If you do the outbound, you have a cap. That is how many connections you can send on LinkedIn a month. The safe limit is, people say 800. I would recommend 600 because then you have some leeway. And then also you can see a minimum 20% connection rate. So with a 600, that's 120 leads a month, at minimum, with one profile. Then you can scale it with number of profiles, or you can have a higher connection acceptance rate. So those are the lead gen. So you can get results fairly quickly. The compounding, however, is something that you really start seeing after 3 to 6 months. After 3 months, people have seen you several times. They've probably seen you between, you could say, 12 to 30 times at that point. After 6 months, it's double of that. That's close to 100. And when you get to that point, people really are getting almost binary, whether they really like what you're doing or they're unsubscribed and you don't even hear from them. So that's the two timelines that I would say, okay, from the leads and then the really compounding trust are the differentiating factors and the timelines that we see go time and time again. Then let's look at the next question.
Mhm.
And I see also a
Next
couple others
question
in the chat.
is the next question that we got sent in was, we've tried marketing before, it just didn't work.
You guys can read what's on the screen here as well, but I'm going to answer a bit differently on the spot now. The core essence here is, I think I've already mentioned it to some point in the session, and one of the aspects are, if you generate leads, which is ultimately like you have generating attention, you have generating leads, you have generating the demand, and then you're doing the conversions. If you're generating leads already, the question is, how do you handle them? If you have no way of handling them, which most lead generation campaigns are structured like, because it's a campaign, start and stop, that's one of the reasons, most likely. Because if you, let's say, doing outbound, email, LinkedIn, doesn't matter, you usually have a 7 to 21 day sequence. You might have longer, usually not. And over those, let's say, 3 weeks, you might have 3, maybe 4 touch points. Initial, follow up, follow up, follow up. And if you don't have anything after that, people will forget to exist, or you and try to pitch too hard too quickly. And people are like, okay, I'm not in a buying window. Why bother even engaging it or responding to that? So those are usually the reasons why something doesn't work. Of course, you have other things like the message or narrative market fit. So, okay, is the message and the narrative that you're running resonating with the audience? And product market fit, of course, as well, in terms of, do you have something that people actually want? Or have you really been building something that you think is an amazing idea, but the market hasn't really approved of this being a thing that they want? So that's another aspect, but that's a bit separate from the marketing strategy overall.
I want to bounce back to the chat. Then
Yep.
Nicoletta asks, are there any guarantees or warranties that your method works?
So I can answer that in a couple of ways, Nicoletta. One aspect is, we are more a tech company than a marketing agency. So if you were to work with us, we don't offer any guarantees. And the reason for that is, there are elements to this that rely on you that we have no control over. And what we can say is that, what we see is that if you're good at what you do, you have something that is proven, like you have successful clients that can vouch for you, they like you, they can, let's say, give you the stamp of approval that what you've done for them has actually had a positive impact for them. The question is just, how can you get the eyeballs? How can you get people to see that? There are tons of ways of doing that. You can reach out to them on LinkedIn. You can post stuff. You can run paid ads. You can do organic content and get inbound from that, aside from posting. As long as you get the attention and you've actually delivered something that's valuable and proven by clients, with your previous clients, and let's say reviews and testimonials and feedback are valuable, if people see that, ultimately that's going to work. Like, there's really no reason why that shouldn't work. It's the same as, okay, does having a website going to help your company get clients online or not? That, I'm not meaning this in a disrespectful way. It's more like, having done this for so many years, it becomes a bit like an obvious thing that you need to have. Like, you need attention, you need something that is valuable, that makes you be trustworthy, and then you just need to show up. How long it takes, I can't really give you an answer to that, because some audiences are really not active, some audiences are super active, and that is where one of the reasons why we want to invite an audit session is, because it varies. One segment versus another segment is completely different. And there should be available sessions later today if you guys really want to jump on and get an answer to this very quickly. So I hope this answered your question, Nicoletta. If you have follow-ups to that, I would love to have your other questions in the chat as well, to be able to elaborate on further things or address other things that you might have questions about.
There were a few tactical questions. Maybe I can just
Mm-hmm.
bundle them together around LinkedIn. The first one was, what are the early indicators that a system is working? So they had took note of your reference to 65,000 leads. What were the early indicators that that strategy was working? So that's one. I'll bundle that with What's the frequency of posting on LinkedIn? And why do you recommend connection over follow?
So early indicators, there's a couple. So I'm going to split this in outbound and inbound. So if you do outbound, it's connection requests or connections accepted. And the reason for that is if you have a lot of people accept, that means that the audience typically is super engaging or active on LinkedIn, meaning they will also then likely see more of the posts that you end up posting and the content that you share with them. If you do just posting, it is really, do you get, like what we've seen is if you get 20 comments in the first hour, that post ends up going viral or at some degree of virality to it. If you do not hit that, if you hit like 5, it's really not going to go anywhere. However, there are always exceptions to the rule. So that's the early indicators. The second aspect of early indicators are when you get the leads and you start sending emails, how many of those emails, or what's the open rate on those emails? Because if you have a high open rate, that means that there has been a good expectation set in the resource that you send to someone and what they then get. If you have lower than, let's say, 30% open rate on those emails, something is wrong. Either expectations, either your tech setup in terms of sending emails, or just the things that you're sharing is not valuable or interesting. So those things combined should be able to give you an indication in, let's say, less than 2 weeks. For the second questions in terms of follow versus connect, I believe I understand the question correctly by then defining it by if people connect with you on LinkedIn, you're going to send the thing to them. The reason for that when you're posting on LinkedIn is that if you want to send a direct message to someone that comments on your post, you should be connected. That is just best practice in terms of safe limits of doing things on LinkedIn, but also you can't really send things to people that you're not connected with on LinkedIn. You would need a sales navigator account. You have a limit to how many you can send, but it's far lower than if you were connected with someone. And also, if someone takes the additional step of connecting with you, they will see more of what you actually end up posting as well than just people that follow. So I think that is a way to answer both of them at the same time, Lindsay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yep, Nicoletta, thanks for scheduling a time. I look forward to talking to you on Monday. Next question that we had sent in, do we need to keep paying you after the build is complete?
Oh, okay. So one of the ways that we've approached things, or simple answer, no. So what we do is that we build the thing. We set it up. It's like setting up your website. Once the website is set up, we're done doing the work. We will teach you how to do it, and so that you are self-sufficient afterwards. Of course, if you end up saying, okay, I want ongoing help with more content, I want ongoing strategic guidance, or any sort of that, of course, we're open for that. But that is not the core element of how we do things. It's we want to make you self-sufficient, not relying on us or any third-party agency, so that when, let's say, you stop with us or you stop with another agency, you lose everything. Everything's built on your accounts. Everything is some things that you own, and you can just run it for yourself after that. That's the core aspect of that. Any other questions in here? Was there any questions previously in the session, Lindsay, that we wanted to wait until
Honestly,
the end?
all the ones that I highlighted, we've gotten to.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was just, if folks feel like we didn't get to a level of depth that they were looking for, they can add it to the chat now. I've also seen the spots are almost filling up on the calendar.
Oh,
So I
wow.
think a lot of people had some custom questions.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can just go back to maybe one or two that we had sent in. What if our audience is niche or perhaps too niche? What would you say to that?
Okay, that's a good question, because this is a question I've gotten for a lot of clients, and also companies that we've consulted on this, and that is being niche is actually a really good thing in this case. And the way to illustrate it is, let's say that the total number of decision makers in your market is 2,000 versus 100,000. How long does it take you to reach out to the entire market if it's 2,000 versus 100,000? It's going to be completely night and day. Also, depending on that, the strategy that you use is going to be different to generate the lead. Probably with a 2,000, just outbound, directly building relationships is going to be the way to go with. If it's 100,000, you probably need content, and that's the key way of driving the leads. But by having the 2,000, what you actually are able to do is that you're able to reach the entire market that you have several times way quicker than the 100K total market. And that allows you to compound and build the trust way more quickly than if you had the 100,000, because it takes so much time longer to build the audience or reach the entire market altogether. So that's one of the differences between having a really niche segment versus having a more broader, bigger audience overall. So I think that's the way that I would describe that and answer that in more detail. I do see a question here. What frequency of posting do you recommend without flooding? I'm just going to put it on here as well now. So I've tried a bunch of different things on this throughout last year. We have tried one post a week with a lead gen. We've tried one post a day with lead gen. I've talked to people that does up to 5 lead magnet posts a day on LinkedIn, and they post in total 20 times a day on LinkedIn. So it varies. What I've seen is the most important thing is not posting a bunch. It is doing it in a cadence that you can sustain. And this is the thing that goes again and again and again with working with clients on this. And that is, it's not about getting the perfect resource. It's about getting a resource that you're happy with. And personally, for me, I can just scribble and write and record things very, very quickly. If I need to design them, that takes me far longer time and is more exhausting for me personally. So have at least one a week. Personally, I'm trying a cadence of 2 to 3. That is working fine with me. But if you want to really do this, I would say don't really go above 3, stay to 1 to 2, and then have other types of posts that you post on top of it. If you really want to go a bit batshit crazy, do one a day for a month, see how it goes. But then you're probably going to experience what I've done and a couple of other clients of mine have done when they've tried to done that, and that is, it's exhausting creating that many new resources every single day and week. So keep a cadence that you can uphold. That is the key thing, more than doing a bunch. But you want to build momentum, so 1 a week is probably the minimum.
Yeah, if we have time for one more. Yeah, maybe you're looking at Radu's question as
Yeah,
an
let's
early
do the
stage
final one.
startup. Okay, as an early stage startup and the company doesn't have many case studies or clients, could you help this kind of company?
I still believe that the core idea remains the same, and that is, how can you prove you're trustworthy? There are ways of doing this, and this is a bit interesting in the fact that when I started doing this strategy of posting on LinkedIn and using that to generate the traction, I consciously held back in using case studies and reviews to be the proof, quote unquote, to build the authority and credibility. I wanted to lean it on the methodology. So the core thing, and the reason why I asked about the core idea of having the initial proof, is more because you can confirm that, okay, what you guys have is working for people. Not necessarily that you say, oh, client X told or said X, Y, and Z about how great you guys are. It's more about getting the proof that, okay, you have a fit and a match in the market that proves that what you guys do work. Once you have that, that is what we're working from to create all of the rest. So to give you a very clear answer to that, Radu, yes, that's not an exclusion to making this work for a company like you guys, which are a startup or not. It's, you already have a couple. That is enough to prove that what you do works, and that's the most important. I think now one final question came in. This is going to be the final question before we wrap up. But I love the questions that come in at the very end because that keeps me on my toes. Do you recommend certain times of the day to get best results? Thanks to responding to last. So no, it's you have people say, okay, you have certain times of day, certain days of the week. Personally, I've gone viral on all days of the week, in mornings, middays, evenings. None of them have really had a huge impact. But what you want to look out for is when you have a post go viral or perform good. And good could be 20, could be 30 comments. It doesn't need to be hundreds or thousands. Once you have that, try to post at the same time or around the same time. And the reason for that is because that might be a recurring window of activity and engagement with your audience. So, for example, for us, we started having a lot of our audience in Europe, and then over time, US market grew, and we had more engagement in the US than what we had in Europe. So, and that ended up us starting posting later during the day to account for the window for both. And that was one way that we, let's say, optimized according to the data that we gathered as we did this. So I hope this answered your question. And it is ultimately trial and error. It's not one day that works better than the other. All days can work. And it's more about actually just doing the work, getting it done, having a cadence, and upholding momentum by posting once a week at least. And then over time, you will start to see the let's say the signs in the tea leaves when you should post and when you should not post. So yeah, but we're going to leave that with the final question to the session. The link is still open. I think how's the availability, Lindsay, in terms of time?
Yeah,
there
I
should be
think
some
Monday
more.
is capped perhaps, but yeah, there's some more later next
Yeah.
week. Mhm.
So I see now that if you guys want want a session with us and talk to Lindsay more about, okay, what's the right setup and structure for your company, there are times Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week to have one of those. But having said that, we hope that you enjoyed this, that you learned something. I need to apologize that I wasn't able to keep this to 1 hour, and we stretched to the 1.5. That was the full event time. But anyway, for you, let's say how many hours there have for you, 43 people staying around. I appreciate you guys. I hope you found value in this, and I wish you, depending on where you are in the world, have a great rest of your day, have a great evening, good night, and we will probably do more of these in the future. So stick around and find out, and we will tomorrow send over the summary slides links to all of you guys so that you can actually rewatch this and go through these things on your own pace. Having said that, I wish you all a great rest of your day, and thank you for showing up. Bye bye.